Genesis is the first book of the Bible. It is like the title page of a grand story. This book tells us about the beginning of everything. We learn how God created the world. Genesis introduces us to the first humans. It sets the stage for the entire Bible. Genesis means beginning or origin. It is a fitting name for this book. It tells us about the origin of the universe, the earth, and humanity. It is the foundation of the Christian faith. It is a book of hope and promise. The book of Genesis is divided into two main parts. The first part tells the story of creation to the Tower of Babel. The second part tells the story of Abraham and his descendants. These stories are full of drama, betrayal, and faith. Genesis is more than just a history book. It is a book about God and his relationship with humanity. It is a book about our place in the world. It is a book that speaks to us even today. In the beginning there was nothing. Then God spoke and the universe exploded into existence. He created light and separated it from the darkness. He formed the sky and the seas. He made the land and filled it with plants and animals. On the sixth day, God created humanity. He made Adam the first man in his own image. He then created Eve from Adam's rib. God placed them in the Garden of Eden, a paradise where everything was perfect. He gave them dominion over all creation. However, he gave them one command, not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But a serpent tempted Eve, questioning God's words. The serpent convinced Eve to eat fruit from the forbidden tree. Eve gave some to Adam, and he ate it too. This act of disobedience is known as the fall. When God found out, he banished Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden. Sin and death entered the world. The story of creation and the fall teaches us about God's power and love. It also teaches us about the consequences of sin. Even though humanity disobeyed, God still provided a way back to him. Adam and Eve had children. Their first two sons were Cain and Abel. Cain was a farmer and Abel was a shepherd. One day, they both brought offerings to God. God accepted Abel's offering but rejected Cain's. This made Cain angry. He let jealousy consume him. He killed his brother Abel in a fit of rage. This was the first murder in human history. God punished Cain by banishing him from his family. Cain would wander the earth, marked by his sin. The story of Cain and Abel teaches us about the destructive power of sin. It shows us that even in the perfect world God created, human choices could lead to terrible consequences. The story also shows God's justice and mercy. Despite the tragedy, Adam and Eve had more children. Their family grew, and humanity spread across the earth. However, sin continued to spread as well. People became wicked and violent. Section 4, A New Beginning with Noah. As time passed, the world became increasingly evil. God saw the wickedness of humanity and decided to start over. However, there was one righteous man named Noah. God decided to spare him and his family. God commanded Noah to build a massive ark. This ark would protect Noah, his family, and two of every animal from the flood that God would send to cleanse the earth. So Noah obeyed God. He built the ark exactly as God instructed him. Then the rains came. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. The water covered the entire earth. Everything outside the ark perished. After the rain stopped, the water began to recede. The ark came to rest on Mount Ararat. Noah, his family, and the animals emerged from the ark. They stepped onto a cleansed earth. God made a covenant with Noah, promising never to flood the earth again. He placed a rainbow in the sky as a sign of his promise. The story of Noah's Ark teaches us about God's judgment and his mercy. It is a reminder that God punishes sin, but it is also a story of hope. Even in judgment, God preserved a remnant of humanity. Noah and his family represent a new beginning for humankind. Section 5, The Patriarchs, A Promise for the Future. After the flood, God called a man named Abram. God gave Abram a new name, Abraham, meaning father of many nations. God promised Abraham that he would be the father of a great nation. God also promised to give Abraham's descendants a land of their own, the land of Canaan. Abraham's story continues with his son Isaac and grandson Jacob. God renewed his covenant with them. Jacob had 12 sons who became the ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel. One of these sons was Joseph. Joseph is betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery in Egypt. But God elevates Joseph to a position of power. He eventually saves his family from famine. The book of Genesis ends with Joseph and his brothers reconciled in Egypt. The stories of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph are crucial in the Bible. They are the patriarchs of the Israelites. They lay the foundation for the nation of Israel. Their stories teach us about God's faithfulness to his promises. Even when humans are unfaithful, God remains faithful. He works through generations to fulfill his plan of salvation. The book of Genesis ends with the hope of redemption. It sets the stage for the rest of the Bible, where God's plan for humanity unfolds through the nation of Israel. It is a book about beginnings that point to an even greater future,